It's 8:08. It's an abundant night. It's the first night with Saint Germain on alchemy. So there's so much symbolic significance to this. So this is the Saint Germain on alchemy. It's true, the book study. Okay, the book study. All right, Saint Germain on alchemy. The book study, number 1, chapters 1, 2, and the intro. That's the way we do it. All right, you ready? Lights, camera, action. The camera was already on. Okay, awesome. Yeah, there we go. All right, so welcome to all who are tuning in to tonight's book study on Saint Germain on alchemy, where we are going to actually be going through the book. Ding, ding, lots of support energetically in the field for this tonight. Francoise Lepchek is a gracious co-host in this experience. We went through the human aura together already. And so I am so grateful to have her support in being able to read a summary or a resume, as the French say. So we'll get Francoise to offer her resume of what is going to be shared tonight. And then Pierre is one of those who have joined in as a Peaceful Inner Warrior United. And we are so grateful to have your input. We love the questions. We love knowing what this message means to you, for you, what you're going to do with it, who you're going to share it with. And then having a conversation that really allows us to become the butterfly without that being because we changed our RNA. We'll leave that subject for right now, but I will just have to say that that is when the caterpillar is no longer what it was before, when it then has different RNA messages going to the DNA. But anyway, so you know how it goes, being in the flow. Francoise, would you like to start with the introduction, please, to Saint Germain on alchemy? I'm going to actually also just feature sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Oh, that was why. Okay. I'm just going to share the screen as well. So it shows that we are live and I am shadow banned, so nobody's on, but that's okay because we are here and we're going to 4pillars.higherconsciousness.ca, which is where you can access the studies of the human aura. Francoise, Pierre and I also just finished that study, and now we're stepping into studies in alchemy, the science of self-transformation with Saint Germain, and then we'll read after that intermediate studies in alchemy, and we'll finish with intermediate studies of the human aura after that. So we are now on to pillar 2, Francoise, from this book, the first chapter.
First chapter, the law of transfer of energy. It's really a great introduction. It's the Ascended Master Saint Germain. He introduces us to the practice of absorbing spiritual light as the core of spiritual alchemy. He speaks of the natural law of levitation, and he gives the explanation about the law of transfer of energy, saying that it is vital to the science of alchemy, for without it, it is impossible to create. And he gives 2 examples of this law, the law of transfer of energy in action. So he tells us that we are fully responsible for each use or abuse of energy that we are using in our daily life and in this world. And toward the end, he's saying that alchemy deals with the conscious power of controlling mutation and transmutation within matter and energy, and even within life itself. So in each chapter, we will see that Saint Germain is giving us some alchemical keys that are hidden in each chapter, and that is like searching to find all the keys in each chapter. So it will be really interesting.
Yes. Amazing. Thank you, Francoise.
I'm done with this chapter.
All right. Well, then we will dive into it. Ooh, actually, before we do that, we are going to actually do the secret key, which is the decree or the call, the pearl
call.
Yeah, so we'll do the pearl call at the beginning so that we can unlock more of the light codes inside of it. And this is by calling in now beloved Master Saint Germain instead of, before we were in Katumi's book, the human aura. So we would do beloved Master Katumi for the human aura. And now we're doing beloved Master Saint Germain, where it's in the purple there. So if you just want to mute yourselves out, and then we're just going to read where it says underneath of pearl call together. In the name of beloved Lord Maitreya, Almoira, and Guru Ma, I ask and command my I Am presence and beloved Master Saint Germain to lower into my heart center your momentum of light and the energy of the dictation that I have just read in order to transmute a corresponding portion of my human consciousness and human creation. Absorb my human consciousness and return it to me requalified and purified. Pass the flame of your higher consciousness through the density and debris of my lower consciousness. Take in the energy of my microscopic consciousness to your heart's altar, consume and transmute it, and return to me the purified substance, the original innocence that is my higher consciousness. And we're going to just dive into chapter 1, the law of transfer of energy. 2,000 years ago, when Christ walked upon the waters of the Sea of Galilee, his demonstration was a manifestation of the natural law of levitation operating within an energy framework of cohesion, adhesion, and magnetism, the very principles which make orbital flight possible. The light atoms composing the body of Christ absorbed at will an additional quantity of cosmic rays and spiritual substance, whose kinship to physical light made his whole body light, thereby making it as easy for him to walk upon the sea as upon dry land. His body was purely a ray of light shining upon the waters. The most dazzling conception of all was his ability to transfer his authority over energy to Peter through the power of Peter's own vision of the Christ in radiant, illumined manifestation. By taking his eyes temporarily from the Christ, however, Peter entered a human fear vibration and vortex which immediately densified his body, causing it to sink partially beneath the raging seas. The comforting hand of Christ, extended in pure love, reunited the alchemical tie, and the flow of spiritual energy through his hand raised Peter once again to safety. The further example of the Master Jesus releasing a flow of energy, as in the case of the woman who touched the hem of his garment without his knowledge aforehand, shows the impersonal love of God, which responds equally to the call of faith from any of those creatures he has fashioned so wonderfully and so purely in the supreme hope of absolute cosmic freedom for all. These two examples refer to aspects of the great cosmic law which are not commonly known, but which are commonly discussed or skirted about by religious groups. The law of transfer of energy is vital to the science of alchemy, for without it, it is impossible to create matter. It is a law that nothing cannot create something. True knowledge of the impersonal law of transfer of energy is also vital to the correct understanding of the great law, for it proves that God, who makes the sun to shine on both the just and the unjust, does manifest through both. Jesus declared during his Palestinian mission that the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. It must be realized then that it is possible to wrest from the hand of God some of the secrets of governing the forces of nature and controlling matter, even though the individual and motive be not absolutely pure. But let none ever think that the one so doing shall escape from accountability, for he is fully responsible for each use or abuse of energy within his world. The reason I am choosing to begin my exposition on alchemy with a note of warning and a sobering explanation is not to cause anyone fear, but rather to instill in all who read a deep and abiding reverence for God, which is the only fear permitted in our octave. It is in reality holy awe that engenders within all who love the great law of love the fullest respect and adoration for the wisdom which so fearfully and wonderfully made all creation in the image of fearless freedom. All those who misuse the powers of the universe for selfish ends find sooner or later that they must relinquish their hold upon their ill-gotten gains, and the penalty they pay is frightful indeed. To produce substance, to feed the poor, to heal at a touch, a withered hand, to raise the dead, and even to set aside natural law and perform by the magic of alchemy miracles of infinite wonder. This seems to mankind to be the ultimate in their use of heaven's grace. Let me embrace the spirit of freedom that makes it possible for a man made in the immortal, loving, God-free image of his Creator to do these things and many more to the benefit of society and to the happiness of his benefactors. But above all, let me praise the proper use of the blessed divine science of spiritual alchemy. The ancient alchemist has ever been a colorful figure, even to his own contemporaries. But time has gilded his image with a glory far greater than that which he has ever possessed, and it is ever thus when approaching the aspects of mystery. It is in the simple graces of life that men will find their freedom, albeit the more complex aspects are progressive expressions of the laws of life that shall enrich the well-being of this earth and of all its people, harnessing their total good on behalf of the most lovely world of freedom that could ever be conceived of, even in the mind of a new Atlantean. So much for the moment regarding the world's society. Let us now consider the individual and his role in the use of alchemy. The inner meaning of alchemy is simply all composition, implying the relation of the all of the creation to the parts which compose it. Thus, alchemy, when properly understood, deals with the conscious power of controlling mutations and transmutations within matter and energy, and even within life itself. It is the science of the mystic, and it is the forte of the self-realized man who, having sought, has found himself to be one with God and is willing to play his part. Through the years, men have attempted to glamorize me with the allure of distance in time and space, which always lends enchantment to the view. I do not sell myself short as the Father's handiwork, but in common with beloved Jesus and others among the great masters of our brotherhood, I am especially interested that each man obtain his rightful place in the proper understanding of how he ought to exercise authority in the universe and in his own world and affairs. Let everyone who begins this study do so with the understanding that I have a purpose in speaking here, and that the purpose is to make each one of you alchemists in the truest sense of the word. This means that you must become familiar at inner levels with the alchemistry of God and how each facet of creation is brought into manifestation in matter, in your consciousness, and in your daily life. In order to do this properly, you will need to meditate and reread these lessons many times, calling to me and to your own God self, your I am presence, for illumination on any point that is not immediately clear to you. When you have the inner degree of alchemist, of the sacred fire conferred upon you by your own Christ self, you immediately become a candidate for admission to the outer court of the great white brotherhood. This factor alone is a great incentive for you to become proficient in genuine spiritual alchemy. It has ever been a fallacy of human thought to deny the so-called miracles in the life of the great avatar Jesus. Nonetheless, he, as a son of God, revealed to all these mighty formulas, which, if understood and practiced, would long ago have transformed the planet into a paradise of perfection. Enough, then, of human nonsense and human creation, as Shakespeare would have said it. Off then with the old, the decay and the moldering mustiness of this shapeless mass, On then with the eternal vastness of an unfettered spirit, a being of such freedom as moving seems apart even from reality and projects the image of eternal hope into the tiniest gem or dewdrop cupped within a blossom rare. I am for the freedom of all, lovingly, Saint Germain. And if you would like to unlock more keys, it is just a way. The Fohatic keys, these are light codes, examples of them. The further description is here, and beloved Almoira is here as well. If you're interested in learning more about the teachings of the Ascended Masters, it is here for you. And then the pearl call again, together. In the name of beloved Lord Maitreya, Almoira, and Guru Ma, I ask and command my I Am Presence and beloved Saint Germain to lower into my heart center your momentum of light and the energy of the dictation I have just read in order to transmute a corresponding portion of my human consciousness and human creation. Absorb my human consciousness and return it to me requalified and purified. Pass the flame of your higher consciousness through the density and debris of my lower consciousness. Take in the energy of my microscopic consciousness to your heart's altar. Consume and transmute it and return to me the purified substance, the original innocence that is my higher consciousness. Beautiful. Thank you.
He talks a lot about different laws. These are cosmic laws.
Mhm.
And I always wanted to have the time to write down and make a list of all these laws. I don't have the time to do that, but I think it would be interesting to just write down all these laws that he's speaking about, and that if we know these laws, then we can act according to these laws, and we can do as Jesus has done, as Saint Germain has done also.
Yeah, I just heard somebody actually say about how Jesus was the way of life. It's a way of life. It's the lifestyle. And actually, if you don't mind me daring to be so audacious as to think that something I did was noteworthy, I want to actually share with you the post about Jesus and about the fact that I believe that we are here to do what he did, because as he said, this you too can do and more. And
Yeah.
I truly do believe that that is true. And I made a blog about it. So I wanted to share that. So here we go. So this is what I wrote on the 24th. People get a degree, so they don't have to agree with things they don't like that disagree with the belief system, BS, they have come to pledge allegiance to, which is what we do when we give ideas our power. It may be connected to the pedigree that we come from, which is of God, for we are godly people who have been given a chance to choose whether we will give praise and glory to God who works through us, or we can pledge allegiance to the lie. We get to choose, and our soul is what will pay the ultimate price. You think Jesus was special? The Buddha, other ascended masters, we have come to celebrate and create false idols around, so we pledge our power or place our power in something outside of ourselves? No, that is BS. Belief systems. They were each a regular man like you, or woman like me, us, that took the path less traveled when things got corrupted. And in the end, their story became significant to the collective consciousness that suddenly had access to that example in the field we are all tuned into. It's the anti-corona. It's the 100th monkey effect and the tipping point theory I'll touch on in a live video. I didn't actually do, so we can do, I can mention both of those if you don't mind. And so it's why I believe we must focus our efforts on individual accountability, which is what tomorrow's Notices of Liability call is going to be about. Of ourselves first and foremost, and then to demand the same of the individuals serving in positions of public influence and power that are making decisions they have no authority to make unless we, the men and women of this country and world, continue to give it to them. Enough is enough. Let us choose to be the Jesus character in our own story so that we can do what we came here for. And I want you to just notice that I have a love of my own comment, because I think it's really important to be your own #1 fan. Because if we won't, then how can we really expect anyone else to dare to love us the way that we won't even let ourselves love ourselves? Because it's like, I remember sitting in a box, I remember sitting on a rock on a beach in Harrison Lake in BC. It's like, if you've never been there, honestly, Pierre, like Harrison Lake is beautiful. And I was sitting there and I heard the story, "You don't love me the way I need you to," about a guy that I was there with. And we'd had a conversation, he wouldn't date me. And the reason I share this is because it was at Harrison Lake that I was sat looking at this beautiful scene the next morning, when it was kind of like I was reflecting and I heard that story. And then I was like, holy crap, that has nothing to do with him. Like, he's just the pattern, because that's the story about every other person. No one has been able to love me the way that I wasn't willing to love myself. And so now I like my own stuff a lot of times very first. And I do it shamelessly, and I point it out so that you have permission, if you need it, to do it too. So with that, we're going to move into the purpose of your alchemical experiment. So Francoise, if you would care to lead the way, I'm going to turn my camera off for a moment, and I'm going to actually grab, no, I'm not going to do that. Darn it. I really wanted, I need a drink. I filled up with vinegar. I had vinegar in the kettle. So what is the symbolic significance of that for all you who are on YouTube or Facebook who are watching this, when I literally took my first swig of vinegar infused coffee at the beginning of this call? I don't know what it means specifically, but Francoise?
Okay, maybe while you go and pick up your coffee, I'll just read the second chapter.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
So the purpose of your alchemical experiment. In this chapter, Saint Germain explained that a void is unfruitful energy. So we must develop the sense of the value of time and space. We cannot just lose our time. We must value time and space. He explained also that to practice alchemy, we must learn first to mirror the great examples of all ages and select the best qualities of their lives. As Laura was saying just a little bit before, Jesus is one of the great examples. Saint Germain also, in all his different incarnation, is a great example how he became the ascended masters of the 7th ray, and Jesus was the master of the 2nd ray, 6th ray. So to practice alchemy, we must first search and learn to mirror the great example of all the ages. There could be a stumbling block in our path, that is the intellectual pride. And many students fall into the traps of their own human pride, because Saint Germain explained that only by love can we truly possess our life and what we are creating. So the purpose of our alchemical.
The purpose of your alchemical experiment.
Something is going on with my computer here. So the purpose of your alchemical experiment is explained by Saint Germain.
Beautiful, thank you. And this is what is in the windowsill. And I just wanted to share it because it seems so relevant to what you shared, Francoise. Mothers help us spread our wings and fly. And so it's connected, because it's like unconditional love is allowing the water to be cupped in your hand compared to trying to clench it and possess it. So I just wanted to bring that in because it was my grandma's. And yeah, so Yeah, prayers to my Papa Bob, by the way. Anybody that wants to send Papa some love, he could use some love. He fell 2 days ago, so we're just making sure he's good. But Uncle Gord took him in, so we're gonna read chapter 2. So August 26th. Chapter 2: The purpose of your alchemical experiment. Void is unfruitful energy. The alchemist must develop a sense of the value of time and space and the opportunity to manipulate both. Freedom is won by quest and conquest, but mainly by the conquest of the finite self. True mastery of the finite comes through the indrawing love, the compelling, almost magnetic heart call of the soul to its divine source. Only the great inflow of the cosmic light of God can release the soul from the imprisoning shadows of its human creation. Summon then the purity of purpose, which will make your creative design good. Relentlessly challenge the base elements which arise like hobgoblins to disturb and try the plan you have begun. And then patiently evolve your God design, the purpose of your alchemical experiment. The true science of the spirit is more exact than mundane measures can yet determine. Therefore, know thyself as the white stone or elixir from whence all thy creation must proceed in orderly fashion. If the key ideas were not created from within thee, who art the alchemist, then the whole act is either hapless or an imitation of the work of another. Now, if it be God thou wouldst imitate, then well done, may truly be spoken of thee. But if the vanity of mankind, then piteous let thy consciousness remain. The true self of man, from whence cometh every goodly design, is worthy to be consulted as to what it is desirable to create. Therefore, the true alchemist begins his experiment by communing with himself in order to perceive the inspiring thoughts of the radiant mind of his creator. It is in imitation of lesser qualities and lesser states of consciousness that society has molded many of its erroneous concepts. To correct these concepts, to forge an ennobling culture, to draw the lines of good character, man and society must look to lofty examples. Let men who would practice alchemy learn first to mirror the great examples of all ages, who have used heaven as their design, and then let them learn to select the best qualities of their lives so that alchemy can be used as it was divinely intended, as the most noble method of achieving the desires of the heart right here and now. I strongly suspect that many of my auditors, but few, if any, of the most sincere students are anxious to have imparted onto them at once the philosopher's stone or the magical properties that will make them at will a combination of Aladdin and Midas, with a trace of benevolence sprinkled in. I here declare, for those who think thusly, that while I shall impart tremendous knowledge concerning the science of alchemy and the whole of this 9-part study, I doubt very much that unless they absorb the secrets of the first lessons with utter humility, allowing me as the instructor the privilege of preparing the teachings as God would have me do, they will not at the very end find themselves wanting. And it will not be the fault of either teaching or teacher. I do not intend to give a lengthy discourse on the vanities of worldly life, but I would like to point out that it is the hope of the Brotherhood in releasing these teachings at this time to avoid for our students the mistakes of some of the early alchemists whose sole purpose seemed to be the acquirement of riches and honor and the ability to produce from universal substance the energies to change base metals into gold. Let me hasten to say that not all of the early alchemists confined their goals to temporary gain. Indeed, many stalwart souls pursued alchemy with the same reverence they would a quest for the Holy Grail, seeing it as a divine art and the origin of the Christian mysteries, as when Christ changed the water into wine at the marriage in Cana of Galilee. We desire to see the original concepts about alchemy given new meaning, and we desire to see the meaning it acquired in the mystery schools brought to the fore. For the uses to which this science is presently put must be translated to a higher dimension if mankind are to reap the full benefits thereof. Unless this spiritual science is applied to the freeing of individuals and society from drudgery, confusion, and compromise with the densities of human thought, as is our wish, the purposes to which God ordained it will remain unfulfilled. We who pursue the high calling of the alchemist aspire to see all attain a place where they can both teach and extol the basic purposes of life to the youth of the world as having far greater than mere temporal pleasures, which in reality serve a lesser purpose to a divine alchemist than does a pacifier to a suckling child. Let no one think, because I spend this time in introducing the heart of the subject to you, that my discussion is not pertinent to the facts at hand. Unless each one understands that he individually must exercise his God-given right to use power wisely and lovingly, he cannot help but fall into the pits of self-delusion and rationalization. Now it is God's plan that everyone on earth pursue the understanding of himself and his destiny. Conceit born of intellectual pride has caused many a sincere student and even a number of worldly masters of one science or another to fall into traps of their own creation. And in many cases, they never knew when the snare was sprung. And therefore, if any subject be included here, let no one think he can omit it simply because he may seem to know it already or because he has considered it before. We place many gems of thought in the most unlikely sentences, which, though plain enough of speech and easily seen, may require more than the diligence of even an honest heart scanning. St. Peter voiced the query, and if the righteous scarcely be saved, where shall the ungodly and the sinner appear? It is well for the would-be alchemist to realize that this is an exact and true science whose illumination is conferred upon man by God himself. Its purpose is to teach mankind how to obtain for themselves every gracious gift and virtue which their life streams might require in finding the way back home to God's heart. I do not say that you cannot learn to materialize every wish of your being, and this aspect of alchemy is for some the easiest part of the whole, while for others it remains the most difficult. I do say that the design of those wishes ought to be contemplated more than the wondrous science of bringing them into manifestation from the invisible. For to create a worthy design is a most noble endeavor, worthy of the God in man, which alone can set him free to fulfill his immortal destiny. We have labored below and waited above for the children of this world to cease the plunder and pillage of war, to cultivate the education of the underprivileged, to relinquish the desire for class distinction, and to offer themselves as would princes of the realm to serve effectively the needs of their impoverished yet noble kin. We are presently determined to seek out the faithful of all nations and to empower them with the means whereby they can individually escape from the self-imposed bondage of the times and obtain their own priceless inheritance. Naturally, this heritage is neither temporal nor ephemeral. However, when serving in England, when serving in Europe to dissipate some of the poverty, the confusion so prevalent there, I did use universal alchemy to produce the substance which, although temporary in nature, supplied many human needs and was both comforting and helpful to the world and to the personal lives of my beneficiaries. I conceive nothing wrong in the idea, nor do I look with disfavor upon your having a divine source of supply to meet all of your needs. I do feel it is needful for you to keep constantly humble and grateful as God places within your hands the key to the control of natural forces. Again, and second to no idea contained herein is the constant need to understand the universal scheme of plan of creation so that all that you design and do will be harmonious with eternal law and cosmic principles. I hope that I shall have neither affrighted nor discouraged any of the students of alchemy from pursuing this marvelous divine study. I am, however, now free to proceed with more relish, for I have magnified the eternally manifest principle of the immortal intelligence of God, which some call inspiration, while others call it simply the mind of God. Whatever men may call a quality, it is its possession that counts the whole 9 points of the law. Therefore, love the emanation of divine wisdom contained herein, which, like sunlight shimmering through the trees, touches with its fingers of light all through which it passes. For only by love can you truly possess love. I am the resurrection and the life of cosmic purpose within you. I am in the name of freedom, I remain Saint Germain. I am that I am, evidently was in my heart. So we will go over to the pearl call. And if you care to join in the name of beloved Lord Maitreya, Almoira, and Guru Ma, I ask and command my I am presence and beloved Master Saint Germain to lower into my heart center your momentum of light and the energy of the dictation I have just read in order to transmute a corresponding portion of my human consciousness and human creation. Absorb my human consciousness and return it to me requalified and purified. Pass the flame of your higher consciousness through the density and debris of my lower consciousness. Take in the energy of my microscopic consciousness to your heart's altar, consume and transmute it, and return to me the purified substance, the original innocence that is my higher consciousness. Amen. 44 minutes and 55 seconds. That was how long we have been in this meeting today. Welcome back, Pierre. Thank you for choosing to honor yourself. And in the replay, it will be a blank screen. So I hope when you hear the pearl call, you can see yourself in the screen, because Pierre is willing to make space for you to be included in that experience. So love that you are here for this whole thing, and would love to know if you have anything to say about chapter 2. I will comment that in the chat that we have here, I did actually write Laud equals Lord. So years ago, I don't know where that was that I saw that, but it always resonated, and I always have held on to truth when it's stuck. And it is to say that originally that was the way it is said that Lord was spelt. The Laud of the land was the one who understood the universal principles. The land, therefore, being the common law. The land is the common law, air is the ecclesiastical contract or canon law, and then water admiralty law is contract law. Those are the laws. S is the space, which is God's territory, which is why it's not court of laws. It's only court of law. You can't fit God into the court. The government is under human. God is under man, or man is under God. God, man, government, and then their public employees or the peace officers, and then you've got the corporations under that, and then you've got citizens underneath of that, because we don't even get paid to fill out a census that's going to lock you in for another 10 years. If you didn't know, that was why that happened. So that's sidetracking, but it is simply to say that Jesus was one who learned how to command the natural laws, and therefore was the man that history wrote about, because his story had to turn somebody that chose to live the godly way into a story that was then turned outside of us, instead of actually realizing it was just the example for us to see, so that we could then do it for ourselves in our own way, because we each came with a different song in our heart, right? So that's all I got to say for there. What do you guys have to say about chapter 2? Just remember to unmute yourself.
So you are making links that are very interesting. So it can look a little bit sidetracked, but it's interesting links to make. Yeah.
Woo! Thank you. I'm glad you caught those. Brilliant. I love it. And you've got the goblet, Pierre, holding down the fort down below. Unfortunately, not a lot of people get to see what I'm doing anymore over on Facebook, simply because I'm kind of shadow banned a lot. But no comments over there that I can see. So we have done it for this evening, my friends. It has been an
Well,
absolute
we
pleasure.
start, I could say, we start a new adventure with Saint Germain and this alchemy.
Do you understand that right behind me, and I didn't even plan it, it says the new begin, and so the new adventure begins.
Oh,
This balloon was blowing. You know how I sit in my little outdoor office oftentimes? Well, this balloon was flying past one day in the yard, and so I grabbed it because I knew that it was the universe sending me a message. And so I grabbed it and I've held it in this corner, is where it ultimately ended up. So while Papa and I eat breakfast, and it's like a new adventure begins. And yeah, so this is literally what is behind me, as you say, a new adventure begins. So the language is perfect, Francoise. Thank you. That's amazing. All right. Well, it has been a slice, and if there are any questions or any things that have come up for you while you've been listening or when you listen to the replay, I would love for you to know that you are fully supported and that we're here for you, that we want to know where you're at, that your life is ultimately what we are here to alchemize. So everything that's showing up for you, all of your emotions are energies in motion that are meant to move. And so when they're showing up, they can be showing up with the momentums of all of the suppressed energies of like kind that have been suppressed, repressed, depressed, compressed, that we tried to pretend didn't exist. All of those momentums of energy oftentimes come hitting us in the moment when we feel triggered and we go off like that and we wonder why. Well, how many centuries of crap did you just have hit you in that moment is oftentimes why. So may we be a little more gentle with ourselves so that we don't feel like in that moment when we blow up because we just had a toxic barrel that we thought was safely buried in the water of our own emotional abyss suddenly gets hit by a stir stick of somebody's something that then sends it up to the top with a hole inside of it that then leaks all of this toxicity into our world, and we say WTF. Well, just be grateful that at least it's now at the surface so that you can actually get it off from there, because those masks are the things that we need to be shifting. I'm not saying just a political message, though I do stand for freedom and lost my job as a cashier for that, but it is to say that it is time for us to stop trying to be somebody that we're not, so that we can truly be who we came here to be. And that's the way that we can truly be the alchemists of the life that we came here to lead, that no one else can lead for us. Because when we hear that intuition, our soul paid that tuition ahead of time for that teacher to be inside of us as our guide. And when we understand that that's connected to the I am that I am and the Christ self that you have a chance to merge with, if you can actually choose the right-handed path of love instead of the left-handed path of power, and to understand that wisdom burns bright yellow in the center to unite and magnify and bring balance to the love, wisdom, power of the sacred chamber of the heart, that is the anchor point to the higher selves that we have the ability to unite with if we are willing to simply transmute some of the choices that we're given an opportunity to make in the moment. We can choose to put those choices into our causal body by choosing right action, to choose unconditional love instead of Luciferian light that fills us with a false sense of self, to be something other than we are. So there's my clearing some space. Thank you for holding that space too, each of you, and all of who are watching. Would love to know what this means to you, for you, what you're going to do with it. and how hopefully it inspires you to be willing to actually get yourself in the room where you can connect with people that are saying things that maybe make your heart beat a little faster because you're like, "Ooh, haven't heard this before." That's fun. Francoise?
Yes, I'm just thinking that maybe one of those nights, if we have time, we could talk about the violet flame. That is the perfect alchemical key also of transmutation and change that you were talking about, of bringing in ourselves to find the real self instead the self that have been, I would say, I don't know if it's the right word, fabricated
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
by our society. So maybe we'll have time one day, one night, to
Yeah.
speak a little bit about the violet flame during this adventure with Saint Germain and the alchemical spiritual alchemy.
I love that. And you brought in the Frankenstein reference was kind of what came to mind when we're talking then about the Luciferian false light. It's like within law, they talk about creatures, which are creations, which are under control. And it's different from offspring, for instance, which you're meant to spring off from the platform of the ancestors you came from, which ancestors themselves is a whole fictitious, it's a whole story of itself too. But we don't need to get into it, but it is to say that the story is way bigger than we've ever been taught. And when we understand how to actually feel without judging ourselves, that's how we choose love and then make positively qualified choices, because we think about who we're going to be because of that choice before we make it. And when we think about that, and like the natives did years before, where they would make decisions 7 generations ahead with them in mind, if we start doing that, that is important, because if we continue on the way that we are, well, we just won't exist any longer. So like, this is our turning point. You can take the power path of control and profits over people and corporatocratic takeovers and all of the crazy, or we can choose love and togetherness and community and growth and opportunities to build ourselves, which is why in September you are invited to the special practice program experience. I'm going to be sending out daily messages as part of the Peaceful Inner Warriors United program. There's going to be opportunities, there's going to be calls. I'm hosting the first youth call on Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm so excited. If you are a parent or a young person, not person, because a person is a trust, and you are a man or woman in the making, which is based on the choices that you make now, despite your age. It is the courage, the heart that you bring to this matter, that we are asking you to know that you are so much more than however old you are. It does not define you. Your soul was strong enough to be here at this tipping point time in humanity's history, was what I wanted to say about the 100 monkey effect. Because did you know there were these monkeys? I've told this story many times. If you've seen it or heard it, I forgive, or please forgive me in advance. But these monkeys lived on an island and they were fed sweet potatoes. And one day, one of the sweet potatoes rolled into the water, and a monkey chased it, wiped it off, and then bit in and didn't have grit in its teeth and liked it better. So told its friend and other family, who then did the same and same and same and same, until suddenly enough monkeys had told the ones that they cared enough to tell, that when it reached the 100th monkey, all monkeys everywhere suddenly had access to that information, just the same way that no one could ever do the minute mile until, wasn't it Usain Bolt who did it? And then suddenly everybody everywhere, it seemed to just be able to just like do what he did. And it took so many years to be able to do. Suddenly people could just do it because there was access to the possibility of it, which is what Jesus did, the Buddha did, and hopefully what you are doing, hopefully what I'm doing my best to be an example that I would have wanted to have when I was a 13-year-old. Because I remember being that 13-year-old, and I did a message where I like full out cried and was emotional. And I did that so that I didn't judge myself and could love myself through it. And because I believe that somebody needs to be willing to see somebody work themselves through an emotional experience without letting it stop them from doing what was actually just a lot of space being made. And the tears just happened to be how the overflow happened. So I hope that you will choose to let someone know that on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you are invited to come together with other families, other young people who are wanting to stand and know they're not alone, even though we who are resisting the mainstream narrative that we are being judged for doing so, and they need to know that they are not alone and that there are more of us. So thank you for letting me share that. I will step down off my little soapbox and we will call it a night unless there is any final word that either would like to say. Pierre's good, Francoise is excellent too. Well, then we will say namaste. Thank you. The light in me honors the light in you. Thank you for shining as brightly as you do, for showing up. So appreciate you. Sending love off into your week and have a great night. Toodaloo.
And may God bless each one in their everyday doing and loving.
Thank you, Francoise. That was perfect. Yes. Beautiful. Thank you. All right. Peace out.
See, I've been swimming around these same old toxic thoughts. They keep telling me I'm something that I'm not. Well, I'm feeling dark and shallow. There's a tingle up my spine. I can feel that tall, dark river close behind. And I can feel that tall, dark river close behind. I've been kicking my own ass for a while. All my friends been waiting on a smile. Well, I was twisted up in my own thoughts. The poison that I drank cost me a lot. Cost me a lot. So I'll keep my eyes on the light. Tall, dark reaper wants to fight, but I won't bite. Not tonight.